Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about what it's going to take to make the next trillion-dollar chain. Now obviously we already have one, which is Bitcoin, and they're responsible for just over about 50% of the total crypto market cap, and then closer to 60 at this point. But overall, Bitcoin is kind of the one that rules the world. Now I think that it's possible that we could potentially see another trillion-dollar chain within the next 1 to 5 years, kind of depending on how things kind of advance and scale. I think personally it'll be closer to 5 years. I think one would be probably primarily fueled by speculation, but that's something that we'll talk about a little bit further. Now what I'm talking about specifically is unlocking the liquidity of Bitcoin. Now we've talked about this a couple times in some recent videos, and the reason why we want to talk about this is because the biggest thing with at least what seems to be happening very much kind of quietly and beneath the surface right now is there's a lot of people trying to figure out how to unlock Bitcoin's liquidity, because obviously there's a ton of liquidity already in Bitcoin. There's a ton more liquidity coming into Bitcoin between governments looking to establish strategic reserves, institutions trying to get bought in, high net worth individuals trying to get bought in, some of like the older crowd, I guess you could say overall. There's a lot of people essentially trying to look into how we could figure this out. And so essentially we're just going to be looking into that today. So now before we get started though, I did want to take a look at crypto bubbles, because what we can see here, pretty decent bounce in the market today. Things looking pretty good overall. We have seen Bitcoin continue its move to the upside. We can see up 3.5% on the day here. It has broken new all-time highs, so we are looking at potentially another breakout run in which we could see 110, 120,000 potentially by the end of the year. Really hard to say overall what's going on right now, but overall we are seeing a breakout, and so we are seeing a decent bit of the market run with that. So we've been really solid this year at 9.2%. Phantom looking pretty decent at 19, just shy of 20% actually. Jasmine up 6, Stacks up 15. This is one we will be talking about here in a second as well. But moving on, I want to take a look at some of the big projects that we've seen very publicly talking about building on Bitcoin, essentially. So starting out, what we can see, we're going to focus on 3 coins in particular that I would say have made some level of recent gesture or continued gestures through the past of essentially unlocking liquidity via Bitcoin. First one is XRP. XRP we can see is the 4th largest cryptocurrency. Realistically, it's only behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. USDT is just stable coins, and even then it's almost about to pass USDT. We can see XRP very large. If we look at XRP, we can see they have this XRP ledger, and they're essentially trying to build more of an ecosystem that you can build on. I think it's more aimed towards businesses, more professional settings, potentially even banking, cross-border transactions, a lot of that type of stuff. However, one of the big things that they have noted in here is interoperability. We have seen them talk at least a little bit about unlocking essentially the liquidity of Bitcoin, essentially creating native bridges where you could trade real Bitcoin within the XRP ledger. So this is something that I would say they're probably at the very beginning stages looking at this. I haven't seen much like tangible data anywhere here, even on this like overall page. Most of what we've seen them talk about is on like Twitter or things like that. We haven't even seen much mentioned about unlocking the liquidity of Bitcoin from within any of these apps so far, but they are definitely building within the XRP ecosystem. So this is something where I would say they're kind of more towards the beginning end of kind of development and bringing that to reality, but it is still something that they are doing. Now moving on, we have the next one that I want to talk about, which is Cardano. They're the 9th coin. You could say 7th if we were to take out stable coins of USDT and USDC. They're sitting at just shy of a $40 billion market cap. Again, pretty large, but when you compare that to unlocking the liquidity of a $2 trillion chain at this point, not too bad overall. I mean, obviously a ton of upside. This is why I do think that this could be, potentially the next $1 trillion chain, is because if you're able to unlock the liquidity or even make the liquidity on this chain a little bit more expressive. Currently, there's not much to do with your Bitcoin other than just hold it. So if they come up with some sort of Bitcoin staking protocol or Bitcoin lending, I think even more importantly, a lot of these types of things would really allow people to do a lot more with their Bitcoin. And I think it would actually be a massive boon to the overall crypto industry, because I would imagine there's a ton of people who would actually be really interested in lending out their Bitcoin or even using their Bitcoin as collateral for loans, but they aren't particularly interested in like actually selling their Bitcoin for cash. I think they'd rather use it as collateral. So that's something I think could be a massive kind of unlock of this liquidity. Now, what we can see from Cardano is we've actually seen a bunch coming out of Cardano recently about this Bitcoin OS bridge integration. So this is something that Cardano has really been pushing toward for quite a long time. We can see this was back in October, so a little bit dated at this point, but they've been really pushing for this. From my understanding, it's just barely kind of becoming operational. So it does, from what it seemed like, have somewhat of a working product, but it's not really, I would say, in a position where it's like in good development, people are using it, like there's a lot of product market fit, all this type of stuff. What we can see is if we go down later on into this article, we can see that they are using Bitcoin OS, and they are one of the like Bitcoin native projects that they are using is a layer 2 scaling solution, Merlin chain, to essentially deploy the Bitcoin OS bridge, and that's how they're essentially getting this cross-chain stuff going on. So we are seeing some Bitcoin native things actually joining in to like help solve this problem. And so what we can see is from here, 40 billion, 2 trillion. I mean, obviously, you know, this would do really, really, really very well for the Cardano price if they can get this figured out. Also, if we look within the Bitcoin ecosystem, we can see Merlin chain, actually one of the larger ones, only at 166 million here. They're one of the several layer 2s. Merlin chain's actually like a Bitcoin native one. TRAC is also another Bitcoin native one. We also have Stacks, which is one I said we were going to talk about. They're actually a little further down. They're not in the Bitcoin ecosystem for whatever reason, which I think is a bit strange, but we can see them here down at number 51 at just shy of 4 billion. Stacks is probably like the OG. They've been around the longest for sure, but lots of different players kind of coming up within this market. Now, the last one that I wanted to take a look at is ICP. We've obviously talked about ICP a lot on the channel here, but ICP, I would say, is like, if we're looking at a sliding scale, I'd put XRP at the very bottom end of like unpreparedness, I guess. I would probably put Cardano in the middle, because they have essentially like indicated that they are working towards solving this problem, and they do seem to have a solution there, but not necessarily maybe like a full production level, like ready type of solution. Where ICP, I would probably put on the far end of that, which is they've had these solutions for a while now. They're using the solutions. People are starting to use the solutions. A lot of the growth that they've seen in their network is because of some of this. We actually have Bitcoin protocols building on top of ICP to help unlock like their abilities to build on Bitcoin. TAP protocol is one that we've talked about several times before on the channel, that is one doing this. So there's a lot already established and going on within the ICP community and ecosystem that is building out on Bitcoin. But these are kind of the 3 big ones overall that we have seen. And if we look at ICP, they're actually going to be up a little bit further here from Stacks at number 32 at about 6.3 billion. So as we can see, we've got a very large spread of different people trying to solve these problems at various market caps. Obviously, you know, we've got Stacks at below 4 billion, ICP up here at like 6.3, and then we go all the way up to Cardano, where we're going to see at about 40 billion, and then we're going to see XRP already up at 140 billion, so a decent chunk there. And then if we actually look within the Bitcoin ecosystem specifically, we can see Merlin chain, like we talked about. TRAC has been another one that's been relatively popular. 22 and 166 million there. So obviously, you know, very, very wide spreads in terms of the market caps of the types of projects that are trying to solve this problem. Obviously, as we've seen, like Merlin chain kind of hitching its wagon a little bit to Cardano. If Cardano is able to do this, not only is this massively bullish for Cardano, but this would also be massively bullish for the Merlin chain as well. So if you are a big Cardano fan and you think that Cardano could be the one to solve this problem, then maybe Merlin chain is kind of like a beta play that you could find within the Bitcoin ecosystem that could actually, potentially provide even some better returns than what you would see out of Cardano. But again, that comes with its own extra set of risks, just because Merlin chain is essentially a point solution for Bitcoin specifically, where obviously that's not all Cardano is trying to do. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're trying to do. And so there is a world in which Cardano could win and Merlin chain could lose, which is why you are taking that extra level of risk. Now, obviously, everything I say here is not financial advice, just because you do need to make your own decisions. For example, when you are going down to these very, very small market cap types of coins, it's really hard. You know, obviously you can return a lot more, but the risk is a lot higher because of that. If you're looking within ICP, then obviously, you know, TRAC could be a good beta play to that, being only at the $22 million mark. We have talked about TAP as well. I believe TAP is also, I think they're in the 100-ish million mark somewhere. I don't know exactly for sure, but there I would say 100 million or sub 100 million, somewhere still very, very small market cap. But then ICP itself, if we're looking at kind of what Cardano and XRP are doing versus just ICP is only at 6 billion, where these others are at 40 and 140 billion. So potentially even a nice little beta play there compared to some of these bigger ones. So depending on kind of what, if you are looking to get exposure to some of the people trying to essentially unlock Bitcoin's liquidity, those are probably a pretty decent spread of projects looking to do that. Also, I would say, I do think there's also an argument to be made for if you're looking to essentially like invest in something that is almost certainly going to benefit off of like an increase in Bitcoin's liquidity, it would be Bitcoin itself, right? Because obviously if there's a lot more things that you can do with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin essentially already is this gold standard, well, if there's more stuff you can do with it, there's going to be more reasons for people to hold it other than just holding it, which is what they can do now. Like if you could buy it and essentially lend it out or use it as collateral for some other type of loan, then obviously that's going to be something that you'd probably be pretty interested in doing. So something to think about there from that end. If you did find the information in this video useful, please do give me a like and subscribe, because it really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, just leave those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. Also, if you are looking for a place to trade, I am still doing that monthly deal with BTCC, a 10% bonus on first time deposits. So if that is something you're interested in, feel free to check the link in the description for that as well. Extra bonuses up to $10,055 per user, as well as they've been around for 13 years. So definitely a decent bit of track record for them. Also 300 plus crypto futures, up to 500x leverage, though I would strongly discourage any sort of like that level of leverage. And then also no VPN or KYC necessary. So there is also that option below as well if you are looking for a new place to trade and are wanting basically 10% free money. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.